And the last topic we've got is backup and DR, and I know I'm flying through some of this stuff, but I wanted you to at least have some overview of it. Let's see how those are getting on. All right, so they're both done, right, within less than 10 minutes, and I didn't even pick particularly huge instances. So if I go to tools here, right, I've got my, this is my Azure SQL S3 100 DTU instance. If I go to tools over here, I can just go, right, this isn't probably going to work out for me because I don't even have that. But if you did have Visual Studio installed, you would just go over here, open up, click this link, and it's going to open up that database that you've just provisioned in minutes, right? Once you have SQL deployed in Azure, it's the same as having it on-premise, right? If you've got SCCM running on-premise and you want to extend that, or SCOM, for example, you want to extend that to start looking into your Azure cloud environment as well. You can put the SQL Server up there. You can combine your SQL servers on-premise with SQL servers running in your Azure tenant as well, and use, either SQL mirroring or always on. Have any of you deployed always on, SQL always on? So since SQL 2012, this new feature called always on came out, similar to how Exchange uses the database availability groups, right? And I just did a deployment for a customer in Colorado. It was a records management system that 6 different agencies used, and they wanted it to not run in one agency's data center, so the obvious choice was to put it in the cloud. And that consisted of 4 SQL servers configured with SQL always on, and it was 3 in one data center and 1 in, so 3 in Iowa, 1 in Virginia. And the 3 in Iowa were configured to where they were all asynchronous synchronous replication within the same region. So they were constantly up to date, right? One of those servers was targeted for reporting, so that was the cool thing, right? You can have one of the nodes in an availability group, you can set it to be the reporting server, right? So you don't need a dedicated SQL server just for reporting purposes anymore. You throw that, you can make that available in your availability group. Most of the time it's not doing reporting services, right? But you can use it as a sort of replica for your other machines. So 3 replicated synchronously within that region, another 1 in Virginia, so you've got disaster recovery built in. That's asynchronous replication, so you might get a bit of data lost if you lose that connection, but not very much. I think it's 60 seconds or something. So yeah, you can do the same thing with your SQL Server on-premise, right? You could put another one in Azure, establish SQL mirroring, and have that doing synchronization. So you've got a secondary copy of your production database on-premise running on a VM in Azure. It's not going to take half a day. You've got that set up. So yeah, that's the platform as a service database there. Here, you can go in there and set your firewall rules. So I can say, what's my IP address? Oops. Right, I can take my IP address from here, add it to there, and say, okay, I don't want anything except my IP address to be able to talk to this SQL database, right? So that's where you would add your client IP. Save that, and yeah, pretty cool. So you don't even need to bother with your sort of network security, right? It's all right there at your fingertips. If I go to the back to my VM, so this was the VM I built running SQL, right? So it's a 2-core 7 gig machine. It's got a public IP address, so I can hit this connect button right now. I'm going to get an RDP session.
That memory, that RAM, is actual RAM available for the VM,
Mm-hmm.
for the applications.
Yep.
Not
Yep.
the overall, because some of
Oh yeah, no,
That's not included.
it's for the OS. So you know, now if you look, I'm logging into the actual server. If I go and look at
So this is the box running in SQL Server?
yeah, this is my box running SQL. I go to the performance. Here's my memory, right? 7 gig. I'm only using 1.7 gig. CPU is doing nothing. Okay. So it's everything as if, you know, it's almost a physical machine, right? Go here. I can go and, you know, adjust all of this stuff.
So you could install anything on the spot.
Absolutely. Here is where I would go in and, you know, if I got the cluster service installed and it was all ready, I would just tick this box and say enable always on availability groups. There's actually quite a bit of complexity to getting the always on availability group set up, but nothing that's too complex, right, if you know what you're doing. And then we've got, here was the, where is the management studio? There we go. So, you know, main takeaway is that in 10 minutes, I've got a SQL server here, right? I mean, yeah, I'm not going to import a database because we don't have time. But yeah, pretty impressive, right? To say that you can spin up a SQL machine. This included in that price is a SQL license. And for all intents and purposes, you've got a fully functional Windows 2012 R2 machine running SQL. If I wanted to give it some more storage, right, I just say attach new disk, SQL data 01. Oops. Give it regular hard disk for the sake of this. Going to put it in that storage account. It doesn't matter. Turn host caching on, do whatever I want with it. So that's going to attach a disk, right? So watch how quick this is.
You could do this while the database is being used.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you can. If you want to extend your database disk volume, you probably want to stop SQL services, right?
Okay.
Just adding a second disk.
I'm adding now, another disk, a data disk. Okay, so it was provisioned. You can see there with a 1 terabyte disk, because that's what you get with the that VM in particular that we spun up. I've given it another one now. So there, if I wanted to change the size, I could just do that, you know, on the fly. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to up it to, so I've added a new disk. I'm resizing the virtual machine now. And when that's finished, you can see now it's starting, right? So it's rebooting the machine because I've given it more CPU and memory. But here now you can see we're running now on a DS3 with 4 cores and 14 gig of memory. And when I connect to that machine again and I go into Disk Manager, I'm going to see that additional disk that I haven't done anything with it yet, right? I've just provisioned it. It's like if you've given it a new LUN on your SAN, right? You make it available to the server, but you still need to go into the server and sort of format the disk and, you know, use storage spaces or whatever to present it to the operating system. So he resized. I think I hit connect a bit too soon. There we go. If I now look, I've got 14 gig of RAM, and I got 4 virtual processors. I'll go to my in fact, I can go look here. I'll just show you the traditional way, disk manager. So he sees that I've got an additional disk, needs to initialize it, and there he is. Create a new volume, drive letter, whatever you want. Right, if it was for SQL, I would allocate 64K unit size. And there you go. Now, you know, back in my day, if I wanted a SQL server with, you know, that much resources thrown at it, probably be looking at 4 months, you know. If you wait, like you could go to a totally different, if your VM is within the same series, right, within the D, I can resize on the fly, right? Yeah. But I think if I wanted to go to, you know, an F series, I know you can do that too now. I probably didn't want to do that, but
Not the big one.
cost $1,000 a second. I can't remember. I did a pretty big one, but whatever. I can, you know, I can pretty much stop it. So let me show you something real quick. I know we're kind of out of time. We didn't even get to talk about backup and recovery, but maybe we'll do another session sometime. There's basically 2 primary backup possibilities out of the box. Azure Backup is a service that's offered. So basically you create a recovery vault in your Azure subscription, and then basically that can you go to your recovery vault, and there's a discovery process. So you hit that button and it'll go out and look at all your VMs in your environment, and then you can select which ones you want to basically protect with the recovery vault. And that's basically, you know, the agent that allows you to be able to back up those machines using the Azure Backup service, right? And with that Azure Backup service, you can define your own policies, retention policies, recovery point objects, all that stuff. So it's really cool service. If you're looking to get off tape backups on premise, for example, that's an awesome way to go, because, you know, you provision your storage in Azure, you install the recovery services and use Azure Backup to protect those machines, and it's just going to snapshot back them up directly to your blob storage. Azure Site Recovery, this is a more complex DR product, but Site Recovery will let you basically orchestrate, it'll do real-time synchronization of, let's say you're running Hyper-V on-premise, you've got 1,000 machines down there. You can use Site Recovery to basically snapshot those VMs to your Azure Site Recovery vault, and it will basically keep them synchronized. If you lose that data center, right, it will automatically provision machines and get them up and running based on whatever metrics you configured at the start, right? So it will synchronize the content of the virtual machine up there, and if you need to invoke DR, you can just say, okay, I need these machines running in Azure immediately, or even it will do it automatically if you want. So you've got automated sort of disaster recovery
So in that case, would you be paying some fee until the disaster recovery kicks in?
Not for the VMs, because the VMs only get spun up if the disaster recovery is invoked.
And this only works if you're using Hyper-V on site, not
VMware as well, ESX.
Oracle.
I don't talk about Oracle. If it's a VM, it'll work, basically. So yeah, it's pretty cool, you know. So you know, there's a cost with Azure Site Recovery as a product. It's been around for a while, even before Azure. So you can use Azure Site Recovery. There's some more slides, but basically you can do Azure Site Recovery between, you know, sort of 2 physical locations you might have. This is recovery services, so that's the Azure Backup Service, right? Where you discover your VMs, you register them with the Azure Backup Service, and then you choose the policies. You can define policies per VM types to ensure that they're protected. Similar thing to backup files and folders. You can use Azure Backup to backup file shares on-premise up to the cloud. And this is, Data Protection Manager. Too much to talk about, sorry. But Site Recovery, this is, that's basically how the orchestration works, right? So Hyper-V or vCenter, you've got your Azure Storage, Azure Virtual Machines, automation, all running here. Traffic Manager, that's sort of where the magic happens, right? If you lose your on-premise site and you invoke this disaster recovery site, well, how do your clients know about it? Traffic Manager is the service that would sort of basically tell that your site's offline, and it would stop sending traffic there and it would send it to Azure instead. So yeah, all pretty cool stuff. You know, and relatively straightforward to set up if you know what you're doing. Is there anything else that you wanted to... yeah, I'm just going to delete that virtual machine before Tim sees it. Oh, it's only a 4-core 8 gig. We covered all of the topics that I wanted to. Some of them I wanted to go through in a little bit more depth, but I know you've absorbed a lot of information from Alonso and myself today, and you know, we do appreciate you being here. And you know where we are if you have any sort of requirements or questions going forward. Again, if you're looking to get into Azure as a foothold, that Azure Everywhere program is really great for getting you there quickly. And you know, the cool thing is once you've got your identities up there, you know you've got a solid sort of security basis, right, to start provisioning other things. And you get single sign-on and all the rest of it. So generally a good place to start.